Hello, everyone. As I mentioned at the end of my last Montessori Moments, we are going to be starting a series on understanding the human brain. This is one of my favorite topics, besides Montessori, of course. What you're going to find is that Montessori fulfills the needs of development in a child's brain in a way that isn't always done in other settings. I have a keen interest in the study of children's developing brains, and I think that came from wanting to understand Montessori and child development on a deeper level. So this has then spiraled into an Audible subscription where I have a growing list of books on the subject, on brains, pediatric brain development, differences in brains, a lot of different subjects to do with the brain. I have a long commute. I often refer to the brain on tours and in parent and teacher education workshops, maybe in parent meetings if you ask a question. I think it's important to help you understand your child's brain development and how we promote that development in school, along with things that are important for you to do at home as well. So we're going to start with the frontal lobe. So if we look at this diagram, here's the frontal lobe. You can see how large it is, and it really is in the front area of our skulls at the very front of the brain. We will not get into all of the frontal lobe today because you can see in this chart, just looking at the frontal lobe, there are a lot of different areas in the frontal lobe, and they actually do very different things as well. They're all kind of lumped into one area, but they have little different regions within there that do different functions. So let's start with the most basic, and that's the premotor and primary motor cortices. And these two areas work together to plan and execute movement. But it isn't just them. So here's the premotor, and here's the primary motor cortexes. So premotor cortex, primary motor cortex. So consider this example. I see you use the frontal eye fields, right? That ladder, and for the ladder recognition, we're gonna have to go over to the occipital lobe back here, because that's where we have our image recognition, right? So the seeing and then the recognizing and how high it is. That's the somatosensory association area. So that's up here. And that's where you evaluate the height, the weight, the temperature of something. But I think that I can do it. That's processed in the frontal lobe. I'm thinking that I can do it. I'll have to use both my arms and legs to get up. That is premotor cortex, that planning of the movement. Then finally, the actual use of the motor cortex to move the arms and legs to get up the ladder. And so you see, climbing a simple ladder isn't so simple at all. And in brain development and MS work hard to put all of this together, and it takes time. This is why it's so important to put these opportunities in front of your child to ensure the brain builds those connections and judgments within each area of the brain. The frontal lobe also contains the frontal eye fields, right in here. It's very small. And infants are born with a lack of ability to focus on something, but they quickly begin to focus on a person holding them, and if that person is interacting with them. This short-sightedness allows a baby to begin recognition of human emotions and how their own actions can affect the face in front of them. The occipital lobe, going back over here, also helps sight and works to make sense of what is seen. To help develop these areas of the brain, show an infant black and white geometrical pictures to strengthen the eyes and the brain. It is incredibly important to be responsive to a child, starting at the very youngest age, and respond appropriately. Eye contact, smiles, in talking, show an infant, a toddler, and a child that you heard and saw them, and it demonstrates an appropriate, caring, and responsive adult and builds a loving trust between parent and child. To continue helping to build the occipital lobe, let's go back down over here, the occipital lobe. It is important to give a child exposure to many, many things early on and to name those things. The name doesn't always stick the first time, but object recognition more quickly will. And books can give a child exposure to many different things when you can't, in practicality, go to places where there are cows, chickens, etc. But if you look at the book over and over and name those things, also, of course, animal sounds are so fun, and you've named those animals many times, once you actually go to a farm or a petting zoo, your child will make the link and might immediately name those objects or make the sound for the animal. So I think that's enough about brain talk for today. So rest yours and tune in for more information about the developing brain soon.